going to go ahead and get started. So please take a seat, your choice, around the round table.
Would you like one too? I'll just purse them down.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority special meeting. Hope you're all doing well. Hope your communities are okay. Yeah, great. It's quite a experience, or quite a ride we're going through right now. We'll call this meeting to order. Let's see, time is 4:38, and we'll start with roll call, please.
Yes, thank you. Chair Abekoga.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller.
Here.
Director Martinez Beltran.
Here.
Alternate Director Tyson.
Here.
Director Sinks.
Here.
Alternate Director Lawler. Here. Alternate Director Rennie. Here. Director Elahi.
Here.
Alternate Director Gustav Larson.
Here.
Director Gibbons.
Here.
Director Sayok.
Here.
Director Smith.
Here.
And Director Montano.
Here.
Thank you. No other additional directors or alternates are present, and we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. So this is our special workshop, part 2 of our RIRP discussion that we started last month. So we've scheduled until about 6:30 for this workshop, depending on how lively the discussion goes, I believe. So I'll start off, are there any public comments on matters not listed on the agenda? Nope. All right, great then. So then we will move into our workshop, and we'll ask our CEO, Mr. Girish, to start us off.
Monica's clicking? Okay. All right. Thank you, Boche Abekoga, members of the board, Girish Balachandran, CEO of SVCE. Thank you very much for making your way here on Wednesday afternoon. So today is part 2 of our workshop. We listened to your feedback from the last workshop, and based on that, we've made some changes to the presentation. We also ran the presentation through our Risk Oversight Committee, and we got some very valuable feedback from them too. So I will start the presentation and then turn it over to Monica. Before I start, I did want to introduce our IRP team. You all know Monica Padilla, Director of Power Resources. Hillary Stavers, our Manager of Regulatory and Legislative Affairs. And to her left is Ian Williams. He is our Power Supply Manager. And then in the audience, we have Rebecca Fang, also helping us with modeling. Back there, we have Amy Bailey, who's the Director of Decarbonization and Grid Innovation. And there's a lot that we're going to be doing in the long term and short term on DER and innovation. Poonam Agarwal is also a regulatory analyst and also helping us with some aspects of the IRP. So if we go to our first slide, yeah, oh, I guess, sorry, you've given this to me already. So I wanted to start with what our overall goals are. We are carbon-free today, and we are carbon-free annually, which means that we balance out the amount of carbon emissions we have on an annual basis. And today, our portfolio is hydroelectric, we have some renewable resources, and we have some long-term resources with wind, solar storage. So that's what we do today. The other thing that we have in our strategic plan is something on affordability. The board's basic direction is make sure you run your business so you at least have a 1% rate differential, keeping your rates 1% less than PG&E. Supporting grid reliability. As an energy supplier, we have to be part of the solution of supporting grid reliability. And you've also told us reduce overall emissions outside of the electricity sector by looking at buildings and transportation too. So here are our 3 workshop goals for today. We have in front of you a little cheat sheet in addition to the presentation, which have these goals and the kind of ask that we have. So anytime during the presentation, you can refer to the one-pager, which is just replicated from the slide. So we have 3 things we want to ask from you today. First is our RPS level through the year 2030. We're basically saying, let's not make any change to what you've already directed us to do. And what you've directed us to do so far is stay at 50% renewables through the year 2026, and then get to 60% by the year 2030. So today, at 50%, we are higher than what the state requires. The state requires us to be at 33% by the year 2020. So you've already set us on a path where we are doing quite a bit more than what the state requires. So goal 1, we actually don't have any slides to support that other than saying we'd like you to, at the end of the board workshop, tell us, all right, is that existing direction okay? Goal 2 of our workshop is we would like you to provide us the ability to expand the kinds of technologies we use to satisfy our renewable standard. And specifically, consider geothermal and biomass while still staying carbon-free. And there's a reason for this that I'll get into, which is also from a timeliness standpoint. We do need some direction from you, especially on geothermal. Third, we want you to concur with the modeling scenarios that we are going to embark on in this integrated resource planning process. I should have started with this integrated resource planning process is a compliance requirement from the CPUC. They require us to file this integrated resource plan once every 2 years. We had the first submission done last year, and now we'll be heading towards a 2020 submission. And as part of that, so we have to get it approved by March of 2020. We have to get that approved by you. And so in order for us to do that, we are asking you, let us model a variety of portfolios. So that's what number 3 gets into, and we'll get into details on that. So here are next steps associated with the IRP and with procurement. I've highlighted in blue what will be coming to the board for action. On the IRP, the next time you'll see something coming to you for action would be March 2020. However, we will be coming to you before March 2020 to give you updates on how we are doing with our analysis. So you'll see the timeline, including February 2020. We'll show you some draft information. On the right-hand side of this slide, procurement next steps. You have already taken steps for procurement. Last year, you approved 3 major contracts, had a nominal value of $1 billion, solar, storage, and wind. Now we are getting into the second tranche. And one of the first contracts in that second tranche of long-term renewable contracts is geothermal. And that will come to you December of 2019. So that's the timeline that I've highlighted for our procurement next steps. So we'll come back to this at the end of the workshop. Hopefully we've met those 3 goals, and we can get some direction from you on IRP and procurement. So now I'm going to segue into the board presentation in terms of charting the course through 2030. What does it look like going to 2030? So the pathway to 2030, if you look at the left-hand side column, we're talking about renewables and carbon-free resources, GHG accounting, resource adequacy and reliability, and DER, which is distributed energy resources. I believe there's a glossary also in front of you. So we tried to reduce the number of abbreviations, but you do have a glossary also. DER and grid innovation. So I want to take you through this in terms of the big picture of how we hope to transition from today through 2030 in each of these areas. So when it comes to renewable and carbon-free resources, today we are relying heavily on short-term resources. We don't have any long-term resources in our portfolio. We have zero. Everything's short-term. But those 3 contracts that you approved will come online in 2021. The other contracts we'll be bringing to you in the next 6 months will slowly start to layer on long-term contracts. And that's what, as we transition through 2025, we also want to be looking at, do we want renewables, local renewable resources right in our service territory? And especially on a day like this too, when power is being shut off remotely, something like this is, I think, what you'd want to be considering of local renewables. And 2025 and beyond, you know, we'll continue to have long-term renewables in our portfolio, and then we'll have less dependence on large hydroelectric. And there's a reason for that. In the western United States, a number of other states have increased basically what they want to do in carbon-free power. Just last Friday, Pacific Core, which is a giant utility in the Northwest, announced that they were shutting down 28 coal plants over the next 12 years. Now, when those coal plants go down, and many states like the state of Washington have adopted a 100% carbon-free portfolio goal like us, they'll be demanding hydro. So now you have a lot more people demanding hydro. So we started off with abundant, cheap hydro when we started this agency in 2015 and 16. That's no longer the case. So as we get to 2030, we'll have less dependence on hydro. So let me now move to GHG accounting, greenhouse gas accounting.
My favorite topic.
Today, we use annual accounting, where we use something called the climate registry, and as long as we buy enough carbon-free power on an annual basis, we don't actually care too much about when it gets generated. So in the middle of the night, when we're using electricity, that ain't coming from solar, it's not coming from wind, it's coming from natural gas. It's coming from system power, these unknowable sources which include coal. So the whole industry is moving towards hourly accounting. That's where, so even though I said when I say 2025 and beyond, you've all heard of the 2 big laws that have transformed our business. SB 350 basically got us to increase our renewable targets, basically saying you got to be at 50% renewable by the year 2030. Last year, a new law was passed, SB 100, which basically took that 50% goal in 2030, moved it up 4 years, said get there by 2026, and in 2030, instead of 50%, let's bump you up to 60%. And by 2045, you got to have a carbon-free grid. So that's where we are headed. And to the extent you want to get to a carbon-free grid, we will have to move to more hourly accounting. Some of our larger customers have also approached us, looking at ways in which we can provide them power that's carbon-free hour to hour. Moving on to resource adequacy and reliability. And this is something we all took, I know the board spent a lot of time on resource adequacy in the initial days of our organization, and this continues to be an issue. We used to have to buy resource adequacy for 1-year periods. Now we have to buy for 3-year periods. In addition to that, as we get through 2025, we will probably have to contract for gas units. And I'll give you an example right now. And this is something that's happening in real time. We have 19 big power plants along the coast of California. Somewhere in the 2012 period, due to the Clean Water Act, those plants were required to be shut down. And the reason why was these plants would be sucking in seawater to cool down the plant, and then the water would just be dumped back into the sea. So this was called once-through cooling. The water just came into the plant and went out. And that was destroying some marine life. And the Clean Water Act basically, as it was enforced by the State Water Resources Control Board, said, all you 19 plants, you got to shut down over a 10-year period. And with the first shutdown starting next year. Well, because of a reliability problem, if those plants shut down next year, there will be blackouts in the system. As a result, you have to get some alternate plants there. And so they're actually going to extend the life of those plants by a few years. So natural gas is going to continue to be here for many years. It will continue to reduce. But for us to keep the lights on, we're going to continue to need natural gas plants for a period of time. In addition to this, and I'll maybe get to the next one, which is...
I had a question.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there an alternative to have them install cooling towers or alternate to that once-through cooling rather than just shutting down?
Yes, so they were given the option of doing that. And so some of them have taken that option, but all these units have not. DER and grid innovation. So here's the fourth one. So, when you think about what our goals are, it's not just for electricity, it's also transportation and mobility, but specifically on electricity, today we have our decarb roadmap. We are going to launch some flagship pilots in the next few years. And in 2025, we should have about close to 10 megawatts of demand flexibility. And when we get to that 2030, 2040 timeframe, we should be having about 100 megawatts. Think about it. Today, our peak load this year, so far, 850 megawatts. So when you think about demand flexibility right now, it's not a big piece of our overall demand. It's going to grow, but there's not much of demand flexibility at this point. So this is essentially my part of the presentation. I'll be available to answer questions, but I'm going to hand it over to Monica to take you through the rest of the presentation. Maybe before I leave, I'll ask you, do you have any questions on my section of the presentation?
Yeah, just clarify. I've been here since the beginning, but not everybody has. What are the things that we are required to do versus what are the things that we have chosen to do?
And so we are required, the question was, what are we required to do versus what have we chosen to do? On a renewable portfolio standard, we are required to have 33% renewable power. We've chosen to get to 50%. We have also chosen to have the remaining 50% of our portfolio be carbon-free power. So that was a choice. We didn't have to, by law, being a CCA, we didn't have to. And the implication of that are two. One is we are moving the needle in the sense of encouraging innovation, encouraging investment in new renewable resources, because the mission of our agency has been to accelerate decarbonization, but that has come at a cost too. That's basically, I'd say, those are the choices that we've made versus what we are required to do.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed what DER and VPP were.
Yeah, sorry. DER is distributed energy resources. So essentially anything that's not utility scale, but local. It could be local solar. It could be local batteries. So it's basically distributed in smaller scale. So VPP is a term of art called virtual power plant. So this is a program that Amy and her group are actually developing right now, where in the first quarter of 2020, we can basically aggregate all these batteries and solar and essentially operate it in a way that's beneficial for us on a reliability basis. So it essentially would act like a mini power plant. So if we had control over, say, 1,000 behind-the-meter storage units in our territory, and we signed contracts with all of them, we'd be able to dispatch it according to when we need it and add to some reliability benefits or don't pay for some reliability costs. Okay.
Anyone else?
Oh, anyone else?
No? Great, thank you.
Okay, Monica.
Okay, good afternoon, directors. I'm Monica Padilla, Director of Power Resources. So I guess I get to walk you through kind of the nitty-gritty of how we'll actually achieve this big vision that the board has developed for us, and the pathway that Girish has explained that will get us to that vision. It's not easy, and there are lots of roads that you can take to get there. And certainly we don't control our destiny entirely, as we are at the mercy of regulators, both from the state and from the California Independent System Operator. So when we set our plans and what we decide we're going to buy, we have to do it in that context and making sure that we also meet the requirements put on us. And so Hillary does a really good job at telling us what those requirements are. They change every day, every hour. Yeah. So just to reiterate, these are the issues that were raised at the last workshop, and I think Girish already went over them in quite some detail. So I'm just going to take them one at a time and just hopefully walk through some of the technical elements associated with why we decided to recommend or ask you to direct us to look at certain things. So for RPS level, again. Here we're basically restating what we believe the direction to be already, and that's to be above the state minimum standard RPS, and to get to essentially 50% through 2026, and then 60% in 2030, which is the state law. So there are alternatives, obviously, as we mentioned. We don't have to be above the state minimum. We can be at the state minimum compliance, and that's certainly an alternative. And then we can actually be higher than where we are today too. Rather than 50%, we could say let's be at 100% next year. Well, a couple of reasons why we can't do that. One, I think the board has also directed us to look at new renewable resources and not just continue to support existing resources. They want to be additive. And quite frankly, it's very difficult to add anything new at this time. There's just a lot of projects in the queue trying to get developed. And so for us to be able to bring on new resources, we actually need a couple of years of lead time to do that. The resources that we're evaluating today, the earliest they could come on would be at the end of 2022, early 2023. So it's quite a challenge to bring new renewables on, so we have to rely on existing. And so then the question is, should we have a higher RPS that relies on more existing resources, or should we try to use our resources and funds elsewhere? And so our recommendation, again, when we go through this exercise of just modeling portfolio for the purposes of the integrated resource plan, is to stick to what has been directed thus far. For baseload renewables, basically we're talking about geothermal. The current IRP that was approved by the board back in July of 2018, or August, essentially excluded any geothermal and biomass resources for contracting purposes. It looked to meeting our carbon-free objectives through the use of solar plus storage, wind, and large hydro, or hydroelectric resources. And since then, a couple of things have happened. One, we issued an RFP, and through that RFP, we received some very competitive proposals, including some geothermal proposals. And while the geothermal contract prices are higher, they have many attributes and merits to them that make them worth looking at, including the ability to deliver in most hours of the day. And as we try to get to this carbon-free objective and trying to match our load to the resources, it's going to be important for us to have resources in our portfolio that deliver on a 24/7 basis. Additionally, that 24/7 basis load generation profile also helps us with reliability, meeting our resource adequacy requirements. And so for these reasons, we're actually asking you to consider that when we do this IRP modeling, and then more importantly, when we bring PPAs to you in the winter, that you take another look at geothermal. And we're happy, when we come back in December with those PPAs, we're going to walk through the merits of the specific contract and how we pick those PPAs as well. And then the last item that we brought up last time that, again, we're trying to just make sure that we understand what we're asking here in terms of when we go back to our computers and do the modeling, is that you consider an allocation of carbon-free resources that we can include in our portfolio. And so this is something that is an opportunity that's been presented to us through all the CCAs and the investor-owned utilities and some of the other stakeholder groups. They've been working together to figure out how can they take the investor-owned utilities resources and better allocate them to all the loads, including CCAs. And so on the table is a proposal that would basically allocate for free all these carbon-free resources that exist in PG&E's portfolio today. And for SVCE, it's quite a sizable amount of carbon-free resources. We estimate that for large hydroelectricity, it could be as much as 12.5% of our load. And so remember, 50% of our load we meet through large hydro resources today. And so this would be 12.5% of free large hydro resources, since we're already paying for it via the power cost indifference adjuster. And then so that's a very non-controversial one. I assume that that's something that we would want to accept without any real discussion. But the more controversial one is nuclear, which is a carbon-free resource, and a quite sizable carbon-free resource. We call it short-term since it only exists through 2025, when the Diablo Canyon project will get decommissioned and shut down. But it represents about 19% of our load, which is a significant amount, and we didn't feel it was appropriate for us not to look at it, since it would have a sizable impact on the cost and affordability, and also ability to meet 24/7 carbon-free and reliability requirements. So those are the asks again. I think we're going to ask them multiple times, so it's going to sound redundant, but hopefully we get the message across that a lot of this asks is just for the purpose of evaluating different portfolios and bringing back to you a set of portfolios or a portfolio that we recommend that we should stick to in order to meet those objectives that Girish identified. So while IRP itself is a compliance requirement that the state asks us to do every 2 years, it's really a really useful exercise. And whether you have a requirement or not, you should be doing this, and you should be doing it often, because it forces you to go back to your community and to look at what your objectives are and what your alternatives are, and to evaluate alternatives that meet those objectives in the least cost and best fit way. So whether we had a requirement to do this or not, this is something that we should be doing. And so I'd like to think of IRP as not a mandate, but rather an opportunity for us to come together and talk about what we should and shouldn't do. So just to highlight here in terms of what our planning and IRP objectives are, the items in black are things that, for the most part, we already are trying to, it's not controversial, we're achieving them. Obviously, from a decarbonization standpoint, we want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we want to meet the RPS requirements. What's new though, and this is something that AB's going to come back to you guys later this year, is we want to pursue additional distributed energy resources that are cost effective. So right now there's distributed energy resources that are included within our portfolio, but they're given to us as an allocation from what PG&E does in their service territory. So to the extent that PG&E has rooftop solar or batteries or any of that, we get an allocated share of that. And we get to claim that in terms of, for whatever reason. But this is really directed based on our objectives, what we find the value proposition to be and what our community wants. So that's something that's exciting. and new in this IRP process. We also will look at carbon-free on an hourly basis. We didn't necessarily look at that last time around. Last time we did the IRP, even though there was a tool that was provided to us by the CPUC where we could calculate what the hourly emissions were. It wasn't really something that was used to determine which resources or which portfolios we pursue. But this time around, because we want to do all this grid innovation, electrification, you really have to look at your carbon content on an hourly basis since you're moving resources from one hour to the next. From a reliability standpoint, the last time we did the IRP, quite frankly, we addressed resource adequacy or reliability in the context of resource adequacy. We said whatever the state tells us we have to do, that's what we're going to do. Well, that didn't work. And so now we're being told you need to look at this much more carefully and you have to have a longer term plan and you can't just rely on short-term products. So this next IRP will have we'll measure each resource, each portfolio's ability to meet reliability beyond just stating that we'll meet it. I think, and then the other thing that we really need to consider this time around is something that we got as far as feedback from the last IRP is we need to assess the deliverability of the resources that we're saying that we're going to include in our portfolio. We included 50% of our resources as an out-of-state large hydro resource. The problem with that is that you can't bring that much large hydro resource if everybody else is also assuming they're going to bring a lot of large hydro resources into California. So there's constraints from a capacity standpoint on how much you physically can deliver into California. And also if you're building a whole lot of solar in California, how much you can deliver onto the grid. And I think everybody here is pretty much familiar with curtailment and the duck curve. So we're going to look at that and how resources and groups of resources actually achieve that objective as well. So when you're doing integrated resource planning and building portfolios, the first thing you need to look at are what set of resources can meet or tools can help us meet our objectives and deliver again on the promise that we made to our community. So the items in blue, which are or teal, the items pretty much on the left side of your screen. I think that's right. Yeah, those are resources that we currently include in some fashion or another in our portfolio. So those aren't things that are new to you guys. The items in red are ones that we want to consider. We're not saying we're going to execute on none of these, but we're going to evaluate them and see how they perform against our objectives. And then the items in brown, those are really not energy products necessarily, but they're products that we used either for reliability or to manage our supply, our load costs. So when deciding on which resources and then which portfolios to look at, again, we're going to measure these on the different objectives that we identified: reliability, affordability, and decarbonization. Each of those objectives have unique challenges associated with them. For decarbonization, the biggest challenge that we see is that we're hearing, again, from our customers that they want better alignment between our resources and when they deliver and when they need to use the electricity. And so that's a challenge when you're building a portfolio of solar, even solar plus storage and wind. It's hard to meet that challenge because it's not 24/7. The efforts that Amy and her group are undertaking to look for electrification opportunities, again, will be shifting load, and we don't want to shift load from one bad period to another bad period. And so again, the idea here is that in order for us to be true to what we're saying on electrification, we have to have a source of supply that really is carbon-free on a 24/7 basis. And that, again, is a challenge because it's not a cheap proposition to follow through on. And then the last one, a little bit about reporting. So even though we pick resources that are deemed to be carbon-free or meet the renewable portfolio standard requirements, some of them have small emissions. And in the past, we got away with, just having them in our portfolio and, whatever. But under AB 1110, which is a new rule that passed, we're now going to have to calculate those emissions associated with some of those resources and show them on our power content label. So this creates a bit of a more of a messaging challenge since we claim to be carbon free. This graph here just kind of illustrates some of the hourly challenges that we have. So the top part of the graph, that represents the 2 solar plus storage PPAs and the wind PPA that we signed last year. So if nothing else, on a very low solar day, so imagine this is probably a winter day, the gap between our load, the black line, and the top of our resources, the teal line, represents kind of everything that's exposed to essentially system power. But because we have a great procurement team and Ian's out there buying short-term resources all the time, we're going to assume that we're going to continue to layer in some additional carbon-free resources and short-term RPS resources. But even then, you can see that in that typical day, we're still relying quite a bit on the grid, the difference between the black line and the top of our resources. And so if we were to just do what we had set out to do in the last IRP, we would essentially be adding some additional solar plus storage, because wind we did not see in our RFP. So it would be a lot more solar plus storage. And that just doesn't take care of the problem. And so there's going to be a lot of days in the year and even months in the year where our load doesn't match up with our clean resources. And that's a problem, or challenge, I should say. From a reliability standpoint, the big challenge there again is that the resources that we're bringing online, solar plus storage and solar alone and wind, are considered intermittent resources. That is, they're not baseload renewables. And so that has been, we always knew about the duck curve, that's not new. The new thing is that the CalISO is seeing a huge problem in this area, this 4 to 9 p.m. time frame, because of the retirement of the once-through cooling unit natural gas plants, and because of the retirement of a whole bunch of other natural gas resources throughout California. When the CCAs took the load away from the investor-owned utilities, well, the investor-owned utilities stopped investing in natural gas power plants. And so now nobody's investing in those natural gas power plants. If nobody invests in them, then the natural gas power plant owners will basically retire them and they go away, which is a good thing for a carbon-free standpoint, but it's a bad thing for a reliability standpoint if you don't have resources that can meet your load requirements. And so the ISO and the state of California have recognized this as a potential big problem. They basically have identified, this is a graph that the CalISO, I have a fly who's flying around me. This is a graph that the CalISO has been socializing quite a bit, and they're on a roadshow demonstrating why they so desperately need to extend the retirement on the once-through cooling units. But they're basically showing that in a typical, or in a day in 2020 or 2021, if you look at the top of the red line here, I guess I can show it here. The top of the red line here is essentially a load during the CalISO's system load between 4 and 9 p.m. Ignore this gray stuff here, because that gray stuff is hypothetical capacity that could be contracted from out of state, but it hasn't been. So what they're concerned is that there are hours in a day when we don't have enough capacity to meet, or enough energy to meet our load requirements. And because of that, they've essentially started a process to mandate procurement. They've identified a shortfall of capacity starting as early as 2020 of 2,300. And that's something that the CPUC has identified, but we hear that the CalISO actually thinks it's more than that. And so mandated procurement basically means that we're all gonna have to do our part to support some of these natural gas resources and keep them online. There are other measures that we could do as well. I mean, we could do more distributed energy resources, demand response, shift energy. We could try to put in standalone batteries. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can do, but that all takes time. And if we're looking at a real crisis or a real shortfall in 2020, the obvious solution is just to keep natural gas on. And then the last kind of challenge that we face when trying to meet these objectives is, how do we put together a portfolio that's affordable? Again, Girish mentioned that a lot of states around us are developing clean energy standards or RPSs like California has. And that some of those states are announcing huge shutdowns of coal, and we obviously like that because, as we're bringing Northwest Hydro in, we don't want to think that there's a coal that's backing up that Northwest Hydro somewhere else. But that's caused a huge demand on clean energy from out of state, as Girish mentioned. I would just say not enough resources exist for all of us CCAs to meet our carbon-free goals, and we all have these big carbon-free goals. So those of us who are able to contract for them or having a directive to contract, we're definitely seeing increased prices for carbon-free resources. We're also seeing huge increased prices for resource adequacy. And that, again, is because these natural gas units are shutting down, and they're just not available in the market to buy, so there's a real scarcity right now with resource adequacy products. And then the cost of integrating our renewable resources that are intermittent, we expect to get higher and higher as we're expecting that the CalISO will require new products that basically allow for better flexibility on resources, or that we have to pay for flexibility for resources to meet for those of us who have a lot of solar in our portfolio. The solar resources that we procured when we bought them, we expected that they would have a certain kind of amount of capacity that we'd be able to use for reliability purposes. Recently, the CalISO and the CPUC gave those resources a huge haircut. So basically, they said you can't count on these at all for reliability. You can get the energy and the RECs out of them, but you're not going to count them for reliability.
Even with the battery?
Well, the battery is another issue, and so the hybrid resources, solar plus storage, they have unclear rules right now about how they're going to count for reliability, and that's been probably a 2-year process at the CalISO and the CPUC to define how these resources will count for reliability. But yeah, everybody's making investments in batteries for reliability and also to improve the energy value of the resource, but it's unclear what the CalISO is going to allow. They really are pushing for the support of natural gas resources. They know that, they can count on it, they can call on it. They don't want them to go away so fast. So,
Question, who's AB in your chart here?
AB?
It's the bottom one. They're doing great, but I don't know who they are. Maybe Alberta?
Oh, yeah, Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no British Columbia on that.
Yeah. So these aren't just states. These are provinces and states located in the Western
Okay.
Electricity Coordinating Council, which is the whole western region.
Monica,
Yes.
may I? Is that one working? I think so. Could we go back to the decarbonization challenge, those 2 slides with the black line? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Do I get this right? So there are multiple purposes and benefits of these 2 slides. One is it talks about the hour by hour. It's taking a single 24 hours and helping us understand the hour by hour issue, okay? And you've picked 2 dates, so I'm gonna say somewhat arbitrarily, one when there's low solar and when there's other resources
They're
coming in.
both low solar days.
Okay.
It's the same day.
Okay, so if, what I'm looking for is, in the past, to see if I'm right, in the past, we have done it on an annual basis. So we would not have a gap between the black line and the sources of power because we did it on an annual basis.
Correct.
Okay. So there are some charts like this that would be high solar days,
Right.
where we'd be way over the black line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not way over the black line, but closer to the black line.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, for me, defining what it is we're trying to talk about now, and why you're bringing in the situation with the large hydro, bringing this capability down, and that what do we have to make it up, which would be the nuclear and the geothermal.
Exactly, baseload renewables, ones that deliver kind of 24/7, regardless of the day of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Another question? Is that okay?
John, go ahead. Did you have
Go
a
ahead.
Go ahead.
As you do these lines, I guess, as to what the consumptions are going to be, have you also taken into account the better energy efficiency in some of the appliances that are put into homes? Or do you expect any improvements in that as to?
And the natural gas plants?
No, just electrical appliances, as to whether they'll be
Oh,
using
electric
less
appliances.
electricity,
Yeah,
so we
so,
don't need as much?
yeah, the load forecast that we use on an annual basis and a monthly basis and even on an hourly basis as we're moving to that is a forecast that's been adopted by the California Energy Commission, which assumes a certain level of penetration of energy efficiency, electric vehicles, demand response. So yeah, that's all already kind of included in here.
We had, I'll go with George and then Yvonne.
Okay. Just on this chart, if you could help me understand, you're showing a low solar day, and I understand the daunting thing that you're hoping to explain here. What is it? Does this mean during the darkest time of year, or what does a good or an average solar day look like?
So an average solar day, so yeah, this is a winter day, most likely, and an average solar day, you would expect maybe the solar, and I should mention too, that the reason you see this little dip here, which is probably not the right way you would operate these things, is because the solar goes away and then the battery gets discharged. But in reality, you would see somewhat of a more different shape here. This is just what the generators have sent us. But yeah, the solar would be probably, I can't get this to work. So the solar would be up here, but still not enough. It's not enough because we haven't contracted for enough resources to start off with. But yeah, even on a good day, you're not going to get enough to meet every hour of your day.
Go ahead, Yvonne.
Hi, good afternoon. I was going to ask you, on that same chart, can you tell me, do you have in mind, the staff, is there some dispersion between geothermal, biofuels, and nuclear that you have in mind to fill that gap? And then is it just reaching, is it a win when we hit the black line? Do we want to be a little over the black line? Does that cost us if we're over the black line?
That's a really good question. And so again, right now we're only trying to solve the problem on an annual basis and on a monthly basis. So we're trying to get enough resources that meet our load requirements on a monthly or annual basis. But what we really want to do is get to a place sometime in the future where we can, every hour of the day, 24/7, 8,760 hours of the year, meet all of our needs with clean resources. That's our goal, but that's a really expensive goal, and quite frankly, not one that you can get to overnight. Even if we could contract for everything today, it would take us years to deploy that. So we're transitioning to that. But what we want to do is we want to pick resources today that better help us meet that in the future. Because if we only pick solar and solar plus storage, it's going to make it very difficult for us to meet that in the future, and we're going to have to do a lot more in terms of capacity. We're going to have to sign up a lot more contracts to help us get there than if we include a base load or two resource that just kind of bumps us up.
And just to add on to that, to one specific point in your question, so right now the goal is the black line. There are situations, I mean, we have seen, if you think about a very high solar day, there have been conditions at some points, at some times of year when, as a system, you have a lot of solar and you actually have a little bit more than you need. And that's maybe that's a conversation about producing more than the black line is something maybe we deal with down the road when the system is more fully decarbonized. But for now, correct me if I'm wrong, we're aiming for matching it and not going above.
Okay, should I go off this graph? Okay. So I think we left here. So now that we know what our objectives are, we know what the challenges are to meet our objectives, we know what set of resources we've used and what set of resources are available for us to use, now we're going to start to we have to look at more carefully those resources that we don't use right now. And so this chart here, I think somebody asked for a matrix last time at the last workshop. I'm hoping that this one does a good enough job to show, these are the items in green, the top 4 lines, again, are resources that we currently deploy. These are not controversial. The ones in blue are the ones that we're considering. And what I'm trying to depict here is how each of these resources meet the different, on a qualitative basis, meet the different objectives that we're trying to state. And so all of the resources on an annual basis can meet the carbon-free requirements. They're all deemed carbon-free, even though geothermal and biomass have small amounts of carbon, we consider them to be kind of like incidental, and we can certainly deal with that. But they don't all meet that carbon-free requirement on a 24/7 if that's where we're trying to get way into the future. Some do it better than others. And so, again, here, geothermal and distributed energy resources and the biofuel, the baseload ones, and even nuclear do that very well, or better than the others. From a reliability standpoint, again, some do better than others. These resources that we picked thus far, because they're intermittent and the CalISO doesn't recognize them as being very reliable, they don't do a very good job at meeting the grid reliability requirements. Excuse me. But some of these other resources that we're considering, including the geo and the bios and the nuclear, do a much better job because they're 24/7. So a lot of this is I'm just repeating, but I'm hoping that this graph here kind of illustrates on a qualitative level how they compare to each other. So again, the main thing that we're here to talk to you again, if you go back to your cheat sheet, where we had the 3 questions, the RPS level, which we're not really getting into much detail, but the first one is to include baseload renewables in our portfolio. And the main thing that, because we're not asking you to include biomass as a specific resource, mainly because we did not see any real biomass proposals when we did the RFP. So while they might be out there, they pretty much already exist. Nobody's building new biomass unless you've got a deforestation plan, and that's going to be mandated and put on us anyway. But in terms of what we can contract for, the resources that meet baseload renewables really are geothermal. And so there's essentially 2 types of technology for geothermal that we saw in our RFP. One is called binary, and the other is conventional. A binary geothermal project does not emit CO2. And so it is, in fact, carbon-free on an annual basis. The conventional one does emit some CO2. CO2s that you have to count because they're considered anthropogenic emissions. That is, they would not have escaped had it not been for the fact that you put a turbine on the steam field and produce electricity. But they're not very much, and again, we can deal with that. For the nuclear, the big question is, whether, again, we're going to get this, we have this opportunity to take a free allocation of carbon-free resources, both large hydro and nuclear. Large hydro, we're assuming that that's okay for us to consider in our portfolios, but nuclear, we really feel that that's something that the board should give us a directive on or direction on. And the way we see it, we have essentially 4 alternatives here. We could do nothing, and if we do nothing, PG&E will continue to count the carbon-free resource, be it nuclear or large hydro, on their power content label. So you can see here that they've been including it on their 2017 power content label, and so that's how they're getting to claim that they're carbon-free in 2018 as well. The second alternative that you could direct us to do is to accept the allocation and retire the attributes associated with nuclear. And so nobody counts it. We don't count it on our power content label. PG&E doesn't count it on the power content label. It's as though it didn't exist. So the system just got a little dirtier because nobody's getting to count the nuclear carbon-free resource. The third one, alternative, which is certainly something that we'll come back to you to talk about in more detail, is that you can accept the allocation, and then we can use that resource, which again is about 19% of our needs for carbon, for total needs, and we could avoid buying some large hydro. And we think that's a savings of, the third one is we can accept them and then sell them. There are other CCAs out there that have a huge appetite for carbon-free. And they would be more than happy to take our allocation without blinking an eye. So that's something that we could do too. We can essentially monetize the value of these carbon-free attributes and then use that money to do whatever we want, buy large hydro or something else. And then the last one, which is probably the more controversial one, is we accept the allocation and we report it on our power content label. So none of these, this decision doesn't have to be made today on what we're going to do with nuclear. The direction that we're looking for really is whether or not we model it in our IRP. Okay, this was Director Corrigan's suggestion that I go shopping, or that we go shopping, we go on a virtual shopping excursion. So again, we've mainly talked about resources and the different tools that we have at our disposal to meet our objectives and our compliance requirements. But when you bring those resources together to meet an objective or a load, then you have essentially what we call a portfolio. And so today, based on what was approved in the last IRP, we're calling that the base case shopping cart. And so that portfolio, again, has solar, PV, it has solar plus storage, wind, and large hydro. That's an easy one. Then we're saying we want to look at another shopping cart. We're calling it shopping cart number 1. It's going to have all those same resources as the base case, but we'll add geothermal for consideration. Again, no decision, just consideration. And an incremental distributed energy resources that would meet about 2 to 5% of our needs, depending on what Amy and her team find. And then the last portfolio is one that includes all of the same resource that exists in the second shopping cart, or the number 1, but also includes the short-term nuclear allocation. And so all of these shopping carts or portfolios of resources will need to include some resource adequacy products in them as well, because we have a compliance obligation there. Some of the resources help us or cause us to not have to buy as much, and that's a good thing, so it makes it more affordable. And then we can also look at other portfolios. This is just the 3 basic ones that we're going to evaluate. We can look at ones that have a lower RPS. We can look at ones where we get a free allocation of large hydro or free allocation RPS. We can look at one that the state thinks that we should pursue for whatever reason. But this is just the basic portfolios that we think we need to look at. This is what the carbon-free portfolios would look like. This is just kind of to put out there what we think each portfolio would have in terms of the different resource compositions relative to our load. And then the main reason for doing the IRP again is to see how these resources and portfolios measure up against your set of metrics. So we'll have like a dashboard type thing. For us, again, important is reliability, decarbonization, and affordability. We'll have all this quantified for you, and we'll share the results of how these portfolios perform relative to these metrics. So that's basically the process we're going to go through. In addition to the IRP, but it also is really goes hand in hand with the IRP, is a whole bunch of other initiatives that we're undertaking in the power supply group and the decarb group, including, as we mentioned several times, this effort to look at what the distributed energy resource potential and virtual power plant potential is in Silicon Valley Clean Areas service territory. I think Amy hopes to get that to you sometime I think she's planning on getting it to you in January 2020, an assessment of what that potential is. And then in March 2020, depending, or it could be even earlier, depending on what the CPUC rules or decides, we will be bringing to you for your consideration approval and of an interim allocation of carbon-free resources from PG&E's portfolio, which would include the nuclear. And by interim, it's only going to be for 2019 and 2020. After that, the CPUC will make another decision on how it's going to reallocate on a longer-term basis all those carbon-free resources, RPS, and resource adequacy. So we're bringing that to you probably in the April-June 2020 timeframe for your consideration again. And then in June 2020, we hope to bring to you a study and a set of recommendations on what we should be considering for reliability outside of carbon-free resources. So these are measures or initiatives or projects that would basically support the grid in a more traditional sense. So it would be investments in a natural gas facility with or without other CCAs, because I think other CCAs are in the same kind of predicament that we are, and that they are going to be mandated to buy this stuff. It could also include investments in a standalone battery, so not a hybrid resource, one that is just basically charged by the grid, but can be deployed for reliability purposes. And that's something that we probably hadn't talked to you guys about before, but it's certainly very popular right now with the CCAs. They're all looking at it, and I think we should be looking at it as well. And then last, in 2020, we, as we go through this process and we learn a little bit about what it costs to achieve carbon-free on a 24/7 basis, we're going to come to you with that evaluation and a recommendation on, or at least a plan on how quickly we could get to an actual 24/7, 8,760 clean portfolio. Because again, that's going to take a lot of time, but we want to make sure that we're planning for it or not planning for it. And then this is just a summary of the IRP and the procurement next steps. And then the workshop goals, which we hope we met the ones on the left. Yeah, left, the blue. And then, of course, we want your specific feedback on the directives that we've asked for.
Great.
That's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Monica? And then I'm going to go to the public, and then we can bring it back for discussion. So questions? Nope. All right, great.
Are we using the Post-it notes?
Oh,
The Post-it notes too? No? Okay.
oh, all right. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak? Yes, Mr. Carney, come on. Oh, do we want them up here? Yes.
Thanks. Hi, Bruce Carney, Mountain View resident, chair of Carbon Free Mountain View and board member of Carbon Free Silicon Valley, and longtime fan of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. I want to compliment the staff for their excellent analysis and presentation of the alternatives. There was one alternative that I didn't see that I'm curious about. In the latest SVCE newsletter, Professor Mark Jacobson from Stanford was featured. He's one of the leading thinkers and writers about how the United States can transition to a true 100% carbon-free electric grid. And one of the technologies that he finds to be essential and particularly relevant to California is concentrating solar thermal power. So you may have seen pictures of large towers surrounded by fields of movable mirrors that focus sunlight on a receiver full of salt. It heats the salt up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit, and water or some other fluid is run through that hot salt to run essentially a steam turbine to produce electricity. The main attribute of that is that the salt stays warm through the peak demand hours of the early evening. The main drawback is that in the morning, the next day, natural gas is used to warm up the salt to get things started. So it's not a true carbon-free resource, much in the same way that geothermal energy is not 100% carbon-free. Still, it uses the power of the sun to produce most of the energy, and it deals with the duck curve issue very well. The reason concentrating solar thermal hasn't been more popular than it has is that it can only be used in certain very, very sunny, hot areas like Arizona and the Mojave Desert, so there's a limited potential deployment area. And the other is that it seems to be quite a bit more expensive than straight PV, and I don't know how it stacks up to PV plus battery storage, but it certainly seems to me that over the planning horizon that's being thought about here, it should be on the table. Because at least according to Mark Jacobson, without concentrating solar thermal, you can't get to a 100% carbon-free and affordable grid. And to speak to the elephant in the room, I personally have no problem with the use of nuclear resources in any of the three options other than do nothing. So.
Great, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, please come forward. I think we have the mic. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mark Bowers. Some of you know me from work on the solid waste side with the city of Sunnyvale. I'm retiring. I'm sort of in a limbo state. I'm going to represent myself as the legislative chair of the county's Solid Waste Technical Advisory Committee. Some of you are members of that commission that oversees the TAC. The reason I'm coming to you tonight on this topic is that as you're doing this process, the state is issuing regulations to implement SB 1383, which is organics diversion mandate. And each of your jurisdictions are going to be required to, by 2025, divert 75% of the organics generated in your jurisdiction from landfill disposal. And when they say organics, it's a very broad definition. Virtually everything I am wearing is considered organics under the definitions and the regulations, except for my watch and my glasses and maybe the belt buckle I have on. The shirt, I guess the pants, actually the pants are not, they're polyester. I'll take that back. So I'll leave them on. So the linkage to what you're talking about is that Article 12 of this 191-page document I'm holding that came out last week in about a third draft is about procurement. The state has determined that local jurisdictions represent 13% of GDP in California, and therefore we will all be tasked to soak up with demand 13% of the organics that are diverted. And at first they said you'll buy compost, and we explained to them that this is like two orders of magnitude more compost than we could buy and give away, which we currently do. And so they came back in this version, loosening up some other requirements that get at energy purchases. So I would encourage you, not to belabor the point too long, to work with the staff here at SVCEA to look at options for biomass and biogas. In other words, you can take organics, convert them through anaerobic digestion into methane, use the methane for vehicle fuels, use the methane for electricity generation, and help meet the jurisdictions meet that procurement requirement, which is really quite onerous. We keep telling the state it's quite onerous, and they keep not paying attention. So we may need to turn our attention to actually trying to comply with it. So that was my message, and I appreciate the time.
Yes, Ms. Tovar.
Thank you. Good evening, Melody Tovar, staff with Sunnyvale. And just I want to appreciate the staff input to all the work you did to put this together. It was kind of drinking from a fire hose for those of us that haven't been tracking it as closely. So thank you for the effort. A few questions as you move forward, and I think some of these would already be on track with how you're presenting this. I do hope that as you bring specific scenarios forward, we would see clearly the projected comparative power content label for whatever scenario you're talking about, and the PG&E projected PCL for that same scenario. So this idea of moving these attributes from one place to the other, how does that affect the ultimate PCL and the ultimate emission factor that would be reported back to us, who have to then do our inventories for our communities? And I'm interested in those emission factors both from the lens of how we do the math today and when this 24/7 accounting takes effect. I do have a clarification question about when we expect that change in accounting requirement to really take effect. I know we've talked about transitioning to it, but I don't have a clarity on when is it required? Like, what's our due date for that? Maybe not determined yet. A couple of other questions more broadly. I did want to share that having been part of the team that did the outreach for the pre-partnership to this agency, we had the benefit of no available nuclear supply. And so when we got community questions, and we did, about whether nuclear would play a role in our supply portfolio for the ultimate agency, it was easy to say, that doesn't really even exist as an opportunity for us today, let's all move on. So I just wanted to share that we did get feedback from community members that there were some concerns, and we just never had to complete that conversation. And then lastly, I'm curious about the strategy of leveraging the nuclear and all the concerns about the availability of large hydro. In short, is there an advantage to upping your investment in longer-term large hydro now so that you secure that before you have the retirement of the availability of these offsets available for nuclear? So is it possible to get 10-year contracts now that really wouldn't be viable a few years down the road if we invested in other opportunities?
Is that? Yes, please.
Especially relative to the transmission concerns and congestion.
Okay, I think that for the first question related to the hourly accounting, no, sorry. The first question was, first point was that you want us to look at how the PCL looks for these different portfolios, and then against PG&E, and then what the emission intensity, for sure, that's the dashboard that we intend to create, and we'll share that with you. The second question is, when will we move to annual accounting on a 24/7 basis? There really isn't a requirement for that right now. It's more that we have the ability to calculate it when we submit our IRP to the CPUC. They have a calculator, but it's not a mandate that we reduce or that we achieve carbon-free on a 24/7 basis. That's more going to be a community directive in the interim until or if the state ever moves to a 24/7, but that's not anywhere mandated right now. Right. And then the last question related to being able to contract for large hydro long-term. So we have an opportunity, and you're going to see that in December, for one real long-term large hydro resource that is being provided to us by the federal government called the Western Area Power Administration Contract. It's hydro that comes out of the Central Valley Project. Unfortunately, it's a really small share. But you'll see that contract in December when we asked to sign up for our allocation that we were granted. It's a 30-year contract. But outside of that, and I'm going to let Ian also speak to this as well, there's not a lot of opportunities for you to sign long-term contracts for large hydro out of state. If you can buy the attributes associated, or you can buy energy that gets delivered at some point, but if you want that physical energy to flow, you have to have transmission, and we don't have the transmission, and we don't have the transmission rights on a long-term basis. Those get allocated to us year by year, so it's very difficult, but we're working with many of the Northwest power hydro producers to see what we can do as a CCA community to ensure that those resources get here. But they themselves, the entities that own these large hydro resources, like the federal government up there, the Vaudeville Power Administration, they have restrictions on how much they can sell long-term too, because they have an obligation to serve their communities first and their state. So what they end up selling us is basically excess. And I don't know, Ian, if you want to add anything else.
No, I think Monica touched upon the big points in terms of transmission, long-term transmission rights, and selling of excess from a lot of the large hydro suppliers in the Northwest. One thing I'd touch upon is some of the large hydro suppliers in the Northwest, the VPAs, the PowerXs, and the Tacomas. Their carbon-free product is called ACS supply. It's an asset controlling supply. With that supply, there tends to be a small nuclear component, especially on the VPA side. Everyone looks at the entire system, and there's a tiny bit of a nuclear in their supply side. So if we were to take that type of energy, we'd have to show that percentage on our power content label. And in addition, there's some gas emissions, small emissions, much smaller than unspecified resources, but there still is a tiny bit of carbon that's associated with these resources.
So there are lots and lots of small hydro resources in California. And in our RFP, we did see those small hydro accounts for RPS. And so we did see some of those opportunities. The problem is they're selling 10 megawatts, or they're selling a product that has a FERC license that expires in a few years. And so they're risky because you don't want to go through the process of FERC relicensing of a hydro dam. So hydro is a beautiful, abundant resource, but just really hard to contract for.
Great.
Thank you. Any, oh, did you have a question on? some of the
If I
answers?
may, so picking up on the, one of the speakers, first speaker's comments about something outside the box with the salt and all of that. We talked a long, long time ago about the canals and the fact that they're open water pits and they lose a lot of water to evaporation. And is there anybody, I mean, thinking outside the box, is there anybody thinking about covering those over with solar panels? I mean, I know it doesn't solve our 24/7 issue, but is there any opportunity to gain generation by the movement of the water or something like that? I mean, what other crazy things are out there?
Yeah, there are quite a few of those ideas. In my previous job, we actually were pitched. We had a canal going through our city, and some folks pitched that. Extremely expensive. There was another idea of putting turbines within our water pipes.
Yeah,
So as
I've
you,
seen that one.
and so we actually had it in the previous utility I worked for. We had that. Super expensive. So I think a lot of these technologies, I think as we move through 2045 and we get to this carbon-free future, and maybe carbon will have a price, et cetera, I think that's where you're going to see those kinds of innovative technologies maybe coming into our portfolio.
So one other crazy one has to do with our water, because we have groundwater here, and the table was going down, and now it's okay. But there was a project to pipe in water and take it all the way back to the perk ponds in Los Gatos and Campbell and elsewhere, and they were going to have to be pumped there in order to do groundwater recharge. I mean, there may be. What I always hate to do is lose sight of the fact that there's all these other projects going on, like the garbage problem and like other things that may have opportunities. And just, we call it a parking lot. We have a sheet of paper that
Yes.
tracks things that are a parking lot.
Yes, we have taken notes of this, and we will do that. I want to add that you have actually allocated some money for innovation programs. And so Amy is running those programs as innovation partners and innovation on-ramp. And every quarter we put out an RFP for ideas. And since our goal is lowering of emissions, we are looking, for example, this current RFP is focused on mobility.
Right.
And so you are spending some of the money on trying to get these innovative ideas, and we're calling some of these are flagship ideas. So in the DER, Grid Innovation, Pathway to the Future, it's those kinds of things we can do, at least to prototype these ideas, and hopefully it'll catch on elsewhere too.
I just wanted to add that for some of the other kind of, I'm not going to say crazy because it's been proven in other places, but offshore wind is another one. We did see a couple of proposals for that in our solicitation. Unfortunately, they were really expensive, and the commercial online date was not consistent with what we were looking for. But that's something that a lot of the CCAs are looking at, and I think Redwood Coast Authority has actually got, is quite a ways down the path on signing an offshore wind project. But these resources that are really expensive, it's hard for a CCA to take the leap and be that R&D person. But we're certainly, if we can work with other CCAs and do joint procurement there and maybe take a chance on one of these more less proven or I guess fancy projects, that's true. I also want to say that the binary geothermal is somewhat unconventional as well. And so while it exists throughout the world, there's not that many of those in the United States. And so while it was initially kind of a high cost, I think that when we bring that to you, you'll see why we picked that resource and the merits are associated with that resource. But it is kind of a groundbreaking type thing. And certainly I'm a big fan of landfill gas generation. We just didn't see a whole lot of those proposals in our RFP, and the few that we did see were quite expensive as well. This is using the organic or biomass, taking municipal landfill, and turning it into electricity.
Great. Oh, yes, Mr.
Are you ready for comments?
Sure, let's go into comments. We have a half
Great.
hour, and you want us to confirm the 3 items? Is that
Yes, that would be
the goal?
good to drive to it.
Okay, great.
So I'll start off by just getting to the punchline. I support staff studying all of these options, and I appreciate your bringing these forward. These are, tough questions for us to contemplate. Is there, net of the PCIA, is there an incremental cost to us acquiring this nuclear power, or is it truly free?
It's free, but it's free now because we've been paying for it.
Yeah.
The way to think about this is if you go all the way back to when SVCE was first formed in 2016, for the customers that we now serve, PG&E, before we announced that we were forming, PG&E had that load in its demand forecast. And as you know, contracts often run 10 or even 20 plus years. So when we formed, then the PCIA was levied onto our customers as a way to pay PG&E for the resources that they had bought on behalf of our customers before we announced that we were leaving. And with the idea being that then the rates wouldn't go up unfairly for customers who stayed with PG&E in our service territory and elsewhere in PG&E's service territory. So we've been paying all along for these resources, but none of the attributes of those resources have transferred to our portfolio. So this nuclear, we have been paying for our portion of it since we launched, but every year those attributes show up as a carbon-free resource on PG&E's power content label, and it makes their power mix look lower carbon. So, and this is a new thing. It was by no means a given that these attributes were going to be made available to us. This was something that came up over the course of last year when we were discussing reform to the PCIA calculation methodology to make it more accurate. It came to light that these resources had been paid for, but because we did not have, until SB 100, there was not an explicit value on carbon-free resources that are not eligible for the renewable portfolio standard, which nuclear and large hydro both fit in that category. But now that we have that goal, a carbon-free resource in and of itself has a value, and everyone realized that all of the CCA customers that had been paying the PCIA had not been receiving their portion of the attributes of those resources they've been paying for. So it's free now, but we've been paying.
So, the baseload problem here is really sobering because the water doesn't always flow, or frankly, we came in at an opportune time to buy resources in the Northwest, but the baseline problem now for us is really sobering. And if we're actually interested in changing what's going on with climate, we should be celebrating the fact that Western states, those states to the north and the west of us, are now moving off of coal. And yeah, they're going to take their local resources as is appropriate. So our ability to get a hold of this energy at any reasonable price is, my understanding is, it's going away, right? So that was 50% when we started, and that was remarkable. But we ought to be celebrating the fact that coal plants on the Western grid are retiring. That's a global warming mitigation benefit for sure. I'll share my story of nuclear this once and be done with it. I was a student in Sweden in 1979, and in March of that year, 3 Mile Island went up, and I, along with many of my classmates, took to the streets in Gothenburg to demand that the government in Sweden phase out nuclear power, and sooner rather than later. And they said, well, it'll take us till 2010. And we thought that was a long time, but the next year the Swedish parliament voted to do that. And subsequent to that, we had Chernobyl and we had Fukushima. And then sometime in the last decade or two, Swedes and other people in the world recognized that there was actually this enormous threat of global warming. And the Swedes changed position. At this point, in 2010, the Swedes decided they would actually replace old nuclear with new nuclear plants, so they changed their policy. They didn't phase out. And at this point, 2/3 of the country, of the population of Sweden, I would argue perhaps a better educated country than our own, support nuclear because they realize that there's something even more vital, and that is combating global warming. So I would say that I support studying all of this. We're not if we do take a nuclear allocation, nuclear, right? Not nuclear, thank you. We're not building a new nuclear power plant. We're simply taking an allocation for which we're already paying. And while it might be controversial to put on our label, I just remind everybody that we have had such effect as community choice energy agencies on moving to a different model here, that PG&E will find an outlet for this nuclear power. And if we're already paying for it and it's free, it sure would be worth studying. And we can test and educate and help folks who struggle with this, as I once would have certainly, to think about whether this is an appropriate thing to do, right? So I'm appreciative of staff for queuing up all these things. I'm interested to know more about geothermal as well. And to Mark Bauer's point, I think we ought to understand with our organics diversion goals, if you go to many of our facilities, we have a real problem of disposing of waste, and maybe we ought to look at biogas and biomasses as well. So those are my thoughts about this, and I really appreciate staff taking this on, and I appreciate for fellow board members this could be a very challenging subject.
Right, let's go to Nancy, and then I have Courtney and Howard. If you can keep your general comments to a couple minutes, and then, yes, so there's 4 of you.
Did you say 4?
Couple minutes
Couple,
each.
okay.
And then we could take these one at a time if you want to just take a straw hand vote. Yeah, so why don't we go ahead and take the comments, and then we'll do a straw vote at the end. Nancy?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I am also in favor of looking at all of the options. I'm not sure how valuable it is to look at the current state, but I guess for due diligence, the baseline is a baseline, so maybe we need to look at that. I also echo Melody's request to add, to include what the labeling would look like, and also to explore with the possibility of maybe selling the nuclear, accepting the nuclear portions, but maybe selling it on down the line so it actually doesn't show up on our label. So I would definitely like to look at that option as well. And then lastly, I don't know, maybe we could follow up with Mark, but some of us here serve on the Recycling and Waste Reduction Commission, so perhaps it might be a wise suggestion to get the two staffs talking and maybe have some presentations about super local energy production using biomass and biogas, because I think that's got some merit, and I know Sunnyvale's working on that. So that is my comment. I do support looking at all the options, except maybe for the baseline.
Yes,
One of our requests is to utilize, one of our requests is to see where the board is in terms of allowing us to use geothermal power. So as you're getting comments, it'll be useful to hear that too.
Right, so to the points, I'm okay with the levels of service as stated by staff. The targets look fine to me. The geothermal looks fine, as I mentioned, with both portfolios 1 and 2 as described. And
Okay. But just to clarify, put a fine point on it. The two things, geothermal, if the board is okay with this, we will most likely be bringing you a long-term PPA in December of 2019 for your approval.
So,
And then in addition to that, we will be modeling geothermal for our long-term portfolio also.
so I'm going to cut to the chase then, if you don't mind, and you're welcome to continue with comments. But on item 1 about the RPS levels, show of hands, is everyone all right with what's listed, the maintenance to 2026, and then going to 60% by 2030? So which is the state requirements. Anyone against? So are you okay with us continuing on with?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so anyone not? Okay, so one, yes, so staff recommendation, folks good with that? Okay, great. Number 2, so this is the question about geothermal. So is it 2 parts, would you say, the December 2019 decision and then the long term, or is it a package, both? Do you want both, or?
I think it'll be, well, maybe it's clearer to do as separate ones.
Okay.
So we plan to bring the PPA December 2019, so I'd like to get a thumbs up on that.
And that's a short term?
It'll be a long-term.
No, it'll be
Long-term contract.
it's going to be a long-term one, but just from a timing standpoint,
Got it.
it's coming in, and given that initially in the early days, the board did not consider geothermal, we want to make sure that we're still heading in the right track there.
Yes, very cool.
Just a question of clarification. So, Monica, you mentioned that there's 2 different technologies
Right.
now. So in December, are we seeing one versus the other? Do we have a preference that we can state?
Yeah, the one that we'll bring you in December, we already are negotiating with them. We have an exclusivity agreement with the developer, between us and Monterey and the developer. So that one, we're pretty far down the path. So if you say no to us in December on that, then the whole amount goes to Monterey. Oh, it's the binary. It's the binary, so the clean one. The second one, we do not have an exclusivity agreement yet. We're in the process of doing that. That's the conventional one that will have some emissions, and we'll come back when we bring that one to you, if you direct us to include it in our basket. Then we'll also bring you a strategy on how we'll neutralize the emissions associated with that as well.
So is there a question here about whether we want to go both or binary only or conventional?
It's both right now, because we have kind of a chicken and egg thing. We have to put together our portfolios for our IRP. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Well,
both.
Pursue it in general or not. I think the direction
Okay.
is, if the board is not willing to pursue greenhouse geothermal because of its slight potential for greenhouse gas emissions, even with the offsets we have available, then staff needs that direction now so that we can continue negotiating the contract with Monterey and the provider. So that's why we're doing this tonight.
So the one that they're looking at is the carbon-free.
Right.
So
Right.
hopefully we can say yes to that.
But
And then
the
this,
other
what if
one's
this,
coming
this
back.
second half is not a project, we can get the analysis before the project would come to us. So I think we can say yes to
Sorry.
doing the analysis on that.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
Elaine, did you have?
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that for the IRP modeling, the geothermal, if you're looking at conventional, you are going to also have a strategy for neutralizing that
Yes.
in the model? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so in light of that, are those okay with the staff recommendation? Okay, I think we're. Or do you have any concerns for those who didn't raise your hands, or?
I'm not, so I'm assuming I'm not voting.
Oh,
This is a workshop.
I think this is a workshop.
Count me in there, yeah, all right.
Oh, you're good. Okay. All right, great. Thank you. So then, and then finally, number 3, the modeling. So, okay, so are we good? So,
I'm not good with this stuff.
The third one
we
is the
good?
nuclear option.
So I think,
the nuclear option.
No.
let me make just a couple comments on these. I think staff gave just a couple of things, and I think that probably everybody can agree that staff should include the modeling of free hydro in all the shopping carts where it's appropriate. And then On the question of nuclear, I think Nancy landed on a very valid spot, which is you probably want to model what would it be to accept the nuclear and then turn around and sell it. And then I think we should add another model in someplace, and maybe it's more than one, that I put down as BioX, be it gas or whatever. And so it would actually add, if you did all these permeations, 2 or 3 more modeling shopping carts.
Grocery carts.
Grocery carts. But I think those would be the practical ones to model. Everything you had, plus the free hydro, plus the nuclear, plus the option of selling the nuclear, and as appropriate, wherever the BioX fit into the matrix.
Agree.
Go show of hands.
So those who agree with Howard, I think we're good. Yes, so at this point, I'll open it back up to Courtney.
No, I don't need to say a thing. I think we've already touched on everything.
Yes, Nancy, you want to finish up?
I believe there may be room in our formal agenda to actually make motions and whatnot, so, and formally respond to the workshop input. So, for those of you, Howard, who had long things, maybe write those down while you still remember them, and we can maybe bring it to the board meeting in about 5 minutes or whatever, however long it is. 45 minutes. Great, okay.
So Nancy, you saying motion now?
No, later. I think it's not agendized, but I think it might be later, so.
I did write them down, so point at me if you want.
I'm just stating that there could be some more formality later this evening, some action kind of
When
things.
we open it up at the regular meeting, we can propose a motion and vote on it. Good, and David.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work staff has done. I think you really present everything so that we can understand it. I do think that we should keep in mind the climate movement that's out there, which is only going to get stronger as more people concerned about the climate come forward. And whatever we do, we have to constantly stay on top of that and make sure that we are headed in the right direction on that.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Okay, I think we're good then. So we'll I'll just call on you, Howard, when in our regular meeting, and we can take a formal vote if that helps staff. So, great. All right, thank you. We're gonna break now for dinner, I believe. Yeah. We'll start our regular meeting at 7.
weather conditions and forecasts, orientation for visitors, and helpful information regarding street repairs and construction. The City of Cupertino's Emergency Preparedness Program provides services to the city organization and to the community to prepare an effective response to natural, technological, and human-caused disasters. The program is a cooperative effort between the City of Cupertino, the Santa Clara County Fire Department, and local volunteers. The City of Cupertino and the Santa Clara County Fire Department offer preparedness classes for Cupertino residents. Businesses who would like employee training may call 408-777-3335. That's 777-3335, or send an email to oes@cupertino.org for more information.
This is your Radio Cupertino Wednesday afternoon Public Safety Power Shutoff Advisory. Due to high fire risk and weather conditions that include gusty winds and low humidity, PG&E has announced a public safety power shutoff expected to impact areas in Santa Clara County, including Cupertino. Due to a change in the weather, the expected timeline of today's public safety power shutdown is now 8 o'clock this evening. At this time, PG&E does not know when power will be restored, but the outage could last for up to 7 days. Please take these steps now to prepare for the likelihood of an extended power outage. Confirm or update your contact information with PG&E in order to receive automatic notifications regarding the event. Create a safety plan for all members of your family, including pets. Prepare an emergency supply kit with water and non-perishable food to last your household 1 week. Determine if your landline will work during an outage and keep a mobile phone as a backup. Keep mobile phones and other devices charged. If you have a generator, make sure it's ready to operate safely. Have flashlights available for your household and avoid using candles. Stock up on the right batteries for all the items that you rely on. Keep cash on hand and a full tank of gas. ATMs and gas stations may not be available during an extended outage. Learn how to manually open your garage door or any other door that operates with electricity. During an outage, unplug or turn off appliances, equipment, and electronics to avoid damage caused by possible power surges. Leave on a single lamp to alert you when power is restored. Typically, your refrigerator will keep food cold for about 4 hours. Your freezer will keep its temperature for about 48 hours. Also, please check on your neighbors. The Monte Vista Arc, located at 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard at the Monte Vista Fire Station, has been activated as a resource that residents can go to for more information during daytime hours. Again, the address of the Monte Vista Arc is 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard. For more information on the Public Safety Power Shutoff event, including the latest impact area maps, please visit PG&E's website at pge.com/PSPS. That's pge.com/PSPS. Please note that PG&E is experiencing high volumes of traffic to their website, so some pages may have trouble loading. And stay tuned to Radio Cupertino for the latest local information regarding this Public Safety Power Shutoff event. During an extended power outage, it is important to have small battery-powered electronic devices on hand to make calls, provide safety, and keep informed. If you are a Cupertino resident impacted by the current Public Safety Power Shutoff event, a number of city facilities will remain open as charging stations for residents to charge their small devices. These include Quinlan Community Center at 10185 North Stelling Road, open weekdays from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Saturdays from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The Cupertino Teen Center at 21111 Stevens Creek Boulevard, weekdays from 3 to 7 p.m., available for teens only. And the Cupertino Senior Center at 21251 Stevens Creek Boulevard, weekdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Sundays from 2 to 6 p.m. In addition, PG&E will provide a customer resource center at the Avaya Stadium, 1123 Coleman Avenue, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Information, water, and charging stations will be available. If you are experiencing an emergency, please call 911. If you are unable to call out, report to the Monte Vista Arc, located at the Monte Vista Fire Station at 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard in Cupertino. And stay tuned to Radio Cupertino for updates regarding this ongoing Public Safety Power Shutoff event.
Profile America, Wednesday, October 9th. October is Polish American Heritage Month, celebrating a people that numbered among America's first settlers years before the Plymouth Pilgrims. The first Polish migrants joined the Jamestown, Virginia settlement in 1608 and worked as glassmakers. One of the nation's Revolutionary War heroes was a Polish officer who is also honored this month. General Casimir Pulaski served under George Washington, organizing and leading the American cavalry. There are about 9 million people of Polish ancestry in America today, and some 535,000 speak Polish at home. The largest Polish American communities are in New York City and Chicago. You can find more facts about America's people, places, and economy from the American Community Survey at census.gov.
Please join the City of Cupertino and the Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society for a free family-friendly festival on Saturday, October 19th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Cupertino's Blackberry Farm. The annual Wildlife and Harvest Day will include a pumpkin patch, photo booth, arts and crafts, an art logo contest, animal visits from McClellan Ranch Preserve, and special demonstrations. Sign up in advance for the morning bird walk. For more information on this year's Wildlife and Harvest Day, please visit scvas.org/wildlife day. That's scvas.org/wildlife day, or call 408-777-3140.
The city's compost site is open once again for bulk compost pickup on Friday and Saturday mornings from 8 to noon at no charge. Compost pickup is available as long as it doesn't rain at the Stevens Creek Quarry site on Stevens Canyon Road across from the dam. No appointments are necessary. Only city residents can use this program, so please bring your proof of residency. For more information about compost pickup, call 408-777-1320.
Wear your favorite Halloween costume and dance the night away. Monster Mash is a kid-friendly Halloween party for parents and children 11 years and under. Come dressed in your favorite costume and spend the evening playing games, dancing, trick-or-treating, and making spooky crafts. This spooktacular event takes place Friday, October 25th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Quinlan Community Center. Register now at bit.ly/monstermash19. That's bit.ly/monstermash19, or call 408-777-3120.
Problem isn't going away unless we all do our part to stop it. So if you see someone who's about to drive after drinking, get the keys. Don't leave it up to anyone else. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
A public service announcement brought to you by RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The Cupertino Chamber of Commerce and the Asian American Business Council are proud to present the 17th Annual Diwali Festival of Lights, Saturday, October 12th at Memorial Park. This free multicultural event is a showcase of music, dance, arts and crafts, fun, frolic, and food. Admission and parking are free. This year's festival features an expanded program of activities and performances from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. For more information, visit the Chamber of Commerce website at cupertino-chamber.org/Diwali or call 408-252-7054. The annual Hidden Treasures fundraiser is the perfect opportunity to shop for those one-of-a-kind holiday gifts with the added benefit of supporting a worthy cause. This year's event will take place on Thursday, October 24th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Cupertino Senior Center. Sale items include knickknacks, kitchenware, glassware, holiday decor, fine clothing, jewelry, fine china, toys, purses, antiques, dolls, baskets, crafts, hand knits, and much more. Proceeds from Hidden Treasures benefit the Senior Center's case management program for at-risk seniors and the Stay Active Fund that provides assistance and offsets the cost for Senior Center membership and classes. For more information, please visit our website at cupertino.org or contact Jason Bazali at 408-777-3127.
Tired of that drawer in your kitchen overflowing with flimsy plastic and paper bags? Bring your own reusable bag when you shop.
I use reusable bags because I'm helping for the future and the present.
I use reusable bags because I'm setting a good example for my children.
I like growing up in a healthy environment.
I use reusable bags because they're durable.
I use reusable bags because they're stylish.
And there's so many cute bags out right now that I can accessorize my outfits, you know.
So bring your own bag with you whenever and wherever you shop. Bring a reusable bag to the mall, the grocery store, the farmer's market, or anywhere you need a reusable bag. It's easy and reduces waste and litter. Try it. This simple action will save 14 million trees and 12 million barrels of oil, which are consumed each year to make paper and plastic bags for the United States alone. Remember to get your own reusable bag at many events. Mix 106.5 will be at this summer. Go to reducewaste.org to find out where you can get your free reusable bag while supplies last. A message brought to you by the County of Santa Clara Recycling and Waste Reduction Commission and your city.
Join the City of Cupertino's Public Safety Commission for dinner and discussion about property, fire, and cyber safety. This year's Public Safety Forum will be held Friday, October 11th from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. at the Cupertino Community Hall, 10350 Torrey Avenue. Hear from representatives from the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office and Fire Department, as well as the Cupertino Block Leader Program. To learn more, please visit our website at cupertino.org. Due to high fire risk and weather conditions that include gusty winds and low humidity, PG&E has announced a public safety power shutoff expected to impact areas in Santa Clara County, including Cupertino, as early as midnight Wednesday, October 9th. Cupertino residents are advised to prepare for having no power for up to 7 days. Please take these steps now to prepare for the likelihood of an extended power outage. Confirm or update your contact information with PG&E in order to receive automatic notifications regarding the event. Create a safety plan for all members of your family, including pets. Prepare an emergency supply kit with water and non-perishable food to last your household 1 week. Determine if your landline will work during an outage and keep a mobile phone as a backup. Keep mobile phones and other devices charged. If you have a generator, make sure it's ready to operate safely. Have flashlights available for your household and avoid using candles. Stock up on the right batteries for all the items that you rely on. Keep cash on hand and a full tank of gas. ATMs and gas stations may not be available during an extended outage. Learn how to manually open your garage door or any other door that operates with electricity. During an outage, unplug or turn off appliances, equipment, and electronics to avoid damage caused by possible power surges. Leave on a single lamp to alert you when power is restored. Typically, your refrigerator will keep food cold for about 4 hours. Your freezer will keep its temperature for about 48 hours. Also, please check on your neighbors. The Monte Vista Arc, located at 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard at the Monte Vista Fire Station, has been activated as a resource that residents can go to for more information during daytime hours. Again, the address of the Monte Vista Arc is 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard. For more information on the Public Safety Power Shutoff event, including the latest impact area maps, please visit PG&E's website at pge.com/PSPS. That's pge.com/PSPS. Please note that PG&E is experiencing high volumes of traffic to their website, so some pages may have trouble loading. And stay tuned to Radio Cupertino for the latest local information regarding this Public Safety Power Shutoff event. This is a special weather statement brought to you by Radio Cupertino. The National Weather Service San Francisco Bay Area has issued a red flag warning for the Santa Cruz Mountains, which is in effect from 5 p.m. Wednesday until noon on Thursday. Residents living in the Santa Cruz Mountains and along the hillsides can expect north to northeast winds of 15 to 25 miles per hour with gusts of 35 to 45 miles per hour during the red flag period. Daytime minimum relative humidity in the teens and as low as the single digits are expected by Thursday. Very poor overnight humidity recoveries are expected, only 20 to 30% Wednesday night. Highest threat is along the highest ridges and peaks as well as southwest-facing slopes. The time period of greatest concern is Wednesday night. Any fires that develop will likely spread rapidly. Outdoor burning is not recommended. A red flag warning means that critical fire weather conditions are either occurring now or will be shortly. A combination of strong winds, low relative humidity, and warm temperatures can contribute to extreme fire behavior. This has been a special weather statement brought to you by Radio Cupertino. This is your updated Radio Cupertino weather forecast for Wednesday, October 9th. A red flag warning remains in effect from 5 p.m. this afternoon until noon Thursday for the higher elevations of Santa Clara County, including the Santa Cruz Mountains. For today, mostly sunny and mild with highs in the upper 70s. Northwest winds 5 to 15 miles per hour, gusting up to 25 miles per hour during the morning. For tonight, mostly clear and cool with overnight lows in the mid-40s. Northwest winds 5 to 15 miles per hour, gusting up to around 25 miles per hour. Higher gusts in the hills. And for Thursday, mostly sunny, a bit warmer with highs in the lower 80s. North winds to around 5 miles per hour, gusting to around 25 miles per hour in the morning.
This is WQGH 344, owned by the City of Cupertino, California, broadcasting at 1670 AM. This radio station broadcasts messages 24 hours a day for the citizens of Cupertino. In the event of an emergency, tune to AM 1670 for live and recorded broadcasts, which may include public safety information, instructions, and advisories affecting life, property, communication, and travel. When emergencies are not occurring, tune to this station for community information about special events, weather conditions and forecasts, orientation for visitors, and helpful information regarding street repairs and construction. The Cupertino Scene is the city's own citizens magazine. In it, you'll find articles about upcoming civic events, useful tips, agenda previews, city council actions, parks and recreation information, and a lot more. The Cupertino Scene is published monthly, except in August, and distributed to residents and businesses in the city. You can also view the latest issue online at www.cupertino.org.
This is your Radio Cupertino Wednesday afternoon public safety power shutoff advisory. Due to high fire risk and weather conditions that include gusty winds and low humidity, PG&E has announced a public safety power shutoff expected to impact areas in Santa Clara County, including Cupertino. Due to a change in the weather, the expected timeline of today's public safety power shutdown is now 8 o'clock this evening. At this time, PG&E does not know when power will be restored, but the outage could last for up to 7 days. Please take these steps now to prepare for the likelihood of an extended power outage. Confirm or update your contact information with PG&E in order to receive automatic notifications regarding the event. Create a safety plan for all members of your family, including pets. Prepare an emergency supply kit with water and non-perishable food to last your household 1 week. Determine if your landline will work during an outage and keep a mobile phone as a backup. Keep mobile phones and other devices charged. If you have a generator, make sure it's ready to operate safely. Have flashlights available for your household and avoid using candles. Stock up on the right batteries for all the items that you rely on. Keep cash on hand and a full tank of gas. ATMs and gas stations may not be available during an extended outage. Learn how to manually open your garage door or any other door that operates with electricity. During an outage, unplug or turn off appliances, equipment, and electronics to avoid damage caused by possible power surges. Leave on a single lamp to alert you when power is restored. Typically, your refrigerator will keep food cold for about 4 hours. Your freezer will keep its temperature for about 48 hours. Also, please check on your neighbors. The Monte Vista Arc, located at 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard at the Monte Vista Fire Station, has been activated as a resource that residents can go to for more information during daytime hours. Again, the address of the Monte Vista Arc is 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard. For more information on the Public Safety Power Shutoff event, including the latest impact area maps, please visit PG&E's website at pge.com/PSPS. That's pge.com/PSPS. Please note that PG&E is experiencing high volumes of traffic to their website, so some pages may have trouble loading. And stay tuned to Radio Cupertino for the latest local information regarding this public safety power shutoff event. During an extended power outage, it is important to have small battery-powered electronic devices on hand to make calls, provide safety, and keep informed. If you are a Cupertino resident impacted by the current public safety power shutoff event, a number of city facilities will remain open as charging stations for residents to charge their small devices. These include Quinlan Community Center at 10185 North Stelling Road, open weekdays from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Saturdays from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The Cupertino Teen Center at 21111 Stevens Creek Boulevard, weekdays from 3 to 7 p.m., available for teens only. And the Cupertino Senior Center at 21251 Stevens Creek Boulevard, weekdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Sundays from 2 to 6 p.m. In addition, PG&E will provide a customer resource center at the Avaya Stadium, 1123 Coleman Avenue, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Information, water, and charging stations will be available. If you are experiencing an emergency, please call 911. If you are unable to call out, report to the Monte Vista ARC, located at the Monte Vista Fire Station at 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard in Cupertino. And stay tuned to Radio Cupertino for updates regarding this ongoing public safety power shutoff event.
Profile America, Wednesday, October 9th. October is Polish American Heritage Month, celebrating a people that numbered among America's first settlers years before the Plymouth Pilgrims. The first Polish migrants joined the Jamestown, Virginia settlement in 1608 and worked as glassmakers. One of the nation's Revolutionary War heroes was a Polish officer who is also honored this month. General Casimir Pulaski served under George Washington, organizing and leading the American cavalry. There are about 9 million people of Polish ancestry in America today, and some 535,000 speak Polish at home. The largest Polish-American communities are in New York City and Chicago. You can find more facts about America's people, places, and economy from the American Community Survey at census.gov.
Please join the City of Cupertino and the Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society for a free family-friendly festival on Saturday, October 19th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Cupertino's Blackberry Farm. The annual Wildlife and Harvest Day will include a pumpkin patch, photo booth, arts and crafts, an art logo contest, animal visits from McCullen Ranch Preserve, and special demonstrations. Sign up in advance for the morning bird walk. For more information on this year's Wildlife and Harvest Day, please visit scvas.org/wildlife day. That's scvas.org/wildlife day, or call 408-777-3140.
The city's compost site is open once again for bulk compost pickup on Friday and Saturday mornings from 8 to noon at no charge. Compost pickup is available as long as it doesn't rain at the Stevens Creek Quarry site on Stevens Canyon Road across from the dam. No appointments are necessary. Only city residents can use this program, so please bring your proof of residency. For more information about compost pickup, call 408-777-1320.
Wear your favorite Halloween costume and dance the night away. Monster Mash is a kid-friendly Halloween party for parents and children 11 years and under. Come dressed in your favorite costume and spend the evening playing games, dancing, trick-or-treating, and making spooky crafts. This spooktacular event takes place Friday, October 25th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Quinlan Community Center. Register now at bit.ly/monstermash19. That's bit.ly/monstermash19, or call 408-777-3120.
Steven. Who said that?
Me, down here.
What are you, a yellow booger?
I'm a banana slug, Steven.
Well, what are you doing in my room?
I'm your sense of adventure. Don't you remember me? Don't you know that we miss you?
Miss me? Who misses me?
You know, all your friends in the forest. The trees, the pond, that little fort that you made out of branches. We all miss you.
Mom took me to the forest last year.
I'm a slug, Steven. It took me a long time to get here.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
The forest is not that far away. Have an adventure today. I'm sure your mom would take you.
You're right. I should get out. I want to have fun. Play in puddles, catch frogs, and climb trees. Hey, Mom!
Yeah, hon? Steven, what is that in your hand?
It's my sense of adventure, Mom. It's telling me we need to get out of the house and have some fun in nature today.
Come to the forest where the more adventurous you lives. Check out discovertheforest.org for cool places nearby. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Chris, you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
There's your comic book collection, the race car bed.
I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I'm taking control over my financial life, and that feels pretty grown up to me.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org. Are those footy pajamas?
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
The Cupertino Chamber of Commerce and the Asian American Business Council are proud to present the 17th Annual Diwali Festival of Lights, Saturday, October 12th at Memorial Park. This free multicultural event is a showcase of music, dance, arts and crafts, fun, frolic, and food. Admission and parking are free. This year's festival features an expanded program of activities and performances from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. For more information, visit the Chamber of Commerce website at cupertino-chamber.org/Diwali or call 408-252-7054. The annual Hidden Treasures fundraiser is the perfect opportunity to shop for those one-of-a-kind holiday gifts with the added benefit of supporting a worthy cause. This year's event will take place on Thursday, October 24th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Cupertino Senior Center. Sale items include knickknacks, kitchenware, glassware, holiday decor, fine clothing, jewelry, fine china, toys, purses, antiques, dolls, baskets, crafts, hand knits, and much more. Proceeds from Hidden Treasures benefit the Senior Center's case management program for at-risk seniors and the Stay Active Fund that provides assistance and offsets the cost for Senior Center membership and classes. For more information, please visit our website at cupertino.org or contact Jason Bazali at 408-777-3127.
I've seen the pictures of what it does to your body. I think it's just gross.
So what do you think of smokers? I personally am not a big fan of smoking, but it's not my place to judge others.
I think that it's just kind of sad how they've gone into this habit.
They smell bad and they're not going to live as long as people who don't smoke.
But let me tell you something, the tobacco company wants you, all of you. Their biggest group that they go after and the fastest growing group of smokers is age 14 to 18.
If there's one thing they should do is that they should definitely quit. I mean, there's no benefits in smoking. Personally, I think it's kind of gross.
They're not the smartest to quit smoking.
It's crazy. It's like, come on. They kill people.
No tobacco.
Brought to you by the Cupertino Teen Commission.
Join the City of Cupertino's Public Safety Commission for dinner and discussion about property, fire, and cyber safety. This year's Public Safety Forum will be held Friday, October 11th from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. at the Cupertino Community Hall, 10350 Torrey Avenue. Hear from representatives from the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office and Fire Department, as well as the Cupertino Block Leader Program. To learn more, please visit our website at cupertino.org. Due to high fire risk and weather conditions that include gusty winds and low humidity, PG&E has announced a public safety power shutoff expected to impact areas in Santa Clara County, including Cupertino, as early as midnight Wednesday, October 9th. Cupertino residents are advised to prepare for having no power for up to 7 days. Please take these steps now to prepare for the likelihood of an extended power outage. Confirm or update your contact information with PG&E in order to receive automatic notifications regarding the event. Create a safety plan for all members of your family, including pets. Prepare an emergency supply kit with water and non-perishable food to last your household 1 week. Determine if your landline will work during an outage and keep a mobile phone as a backup. Keep mobile phones and other devices charged. If you have a generator, make sure it's ready to operate safely. Have flashlights available for your household and avoid using candles. Stock up on the right batteries for all the items that you rely on. Keep cash on hand and a full tank of gas. ATMs and gas stations may not be available during an extended outage. Learn how to manually open your garage door or any other door that operates with electricity. During an outage, unplug or turn off appliances, equipment, and electronics to avoid damage caused by possible power surges. Leave on a single lamp to alert you when power is restored. Typically, your refrigerator will keep food cold for about 4 hours. Your freezer will keep its temperature for about 48 hours. Also, please check on your neighbors. The Monte Vista Arc, located at 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard at the Monte Vista Fire Station, has been activated as a resource that residents can go to for more information during daytime hours. Again, the address of the Monte Vista Arc is 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard. For more information on the Public Safety Power Shutoff event, including the latest impact area maps, please visit PG&E's website at pge.com/PSPS. That's pge.com/PSPS. Please note that PG&E is experiencing high volumes of traffic to their website, so some pages may have trouble loading. And stay tuned to Radio Cupertino for the latest local information regarding this Public Safety Power Shutoff event. This is a special weather statement brought to you by Radio Cupertino. The National Weather Service San Francisco Bay Area has issued a red flag warning for the Santa Cruz Mountains, which is in effect from 5 p.m. Wednesday until noon on Thursday. Residents living in the Santa Cruz Mountains and along the hillsides can expect north to northeast winds of 15 to 25 miles per hour with gusts of 35 to 45 miles per hour during the red flag period. Daytime minimum relative humidity in the teens and as low as the single digits are expected by Thursday. Very poor overnight humidity recoveries are expected, only 20 to 30% Wednesday night. Highest threat is along the highest ridges and peaks as well as southwest-facing slopes. The time period of greatest concern is Wednesday night. Any fires that develop will likely spread rapidly. Outdoor burning is not recommended. A red flag warning means that critical fire weather conditions are either occurring now or will be shortly. A combination of strong winds, low relative humidity, and warm temperatures can contribute to extreme fire behavior. This has been a special weather statement brought to you by Radio Cupertino. This is your updated Radio Cupertino weather forecast for Wednesday evening, October 9th. A red flag warning remains in effect for the Santa Cruz Mountains until noon Thursday. For tonight, mostly clear and cool with overnight lows in the mid-40s. Northwest winds 5 to 15 miles per hour, gusting to around 25 miles per hour, with even higher gusts likely in the hills. And for Thursday, sunny in the morning, then becoming partly cloudy. Slightly warmer Thursday with highs around 80 degrees. North winds to around 15 miles per hour, gusting up to 20 miles per hour during the morning.
This is WQGH 344, owned by the City of Cupertino, California, broadcasting at 1670 AM. This radio station broadcasts messages 24 hours a day for the citizens of Cupertino. In the event of an emergency, tune to AM 1670 for live and recorded broadcasts, which may include public safety information, instructions, and advisories affecting life, property, communication, and travel. When emergencies are not occurring, tune to this station for community information about special events, weather conditions and forecasts, orientation for visitors, and helpful information regarding street repairs and construction. The City of Cupertino's Emergency Preparedness Program provides services to the city organization and to the community to prepare an effective response to natural, technological, and human-caused disasters. The program is a cooperative effort between the City of Cupertino, the Santa Clara County Fire Department, and local volunteers. The City of Cupertino and the Santa Clara County Fire Department offer preparedness classes for Cupertino residents. Businesses who would like employee training may call 408-777-3335. That's 777-3335, or send an email to oes@cupertino.org for more information.
This is your Radio Cupertino Wednesday afternoon public safety power shutoff advisory. Due to high fire risk and weather conditions that include gusty winds and low humidity, PG&E has announced a public safety power shutoff expected to impact areas in Santa Clara County, including Cupertino. Due to a change in the weather, the expected timeline of today's public safety power shutdown is now 8 o'clock this evening. At this time, PG&E does not know when power will be restored, but the outage could last for up to 7 days. Please take these steps now to prepare for the likelihood of an extended power outage. Confirm or update your contact information with PG&E in order to receive automatic notifications regarding the event. Create a safety plan for all members of your family, including pets. Prepare an emergency supply kit with water and non-perishable food to last your household 1 week. Determine if your landline will work during an outage and keep a mobile phone as a backup. Keep mobile phones and other devices charged. If you have a generator, make sure it's ready to operate safely. Have flashlights available for your household and avoid using candles. Stock up on the right batteries for all the items that you rely on. Keep cash on hand and a full tank of gas. ATMs and gas stations may not be available during an extended outage. Learn how to manually open your garage door or any other door that operates with electricity. During an outage, unplug or turn off appliances, equipment, and electronics to avoid damage caused by possible power surges. Leave on a single lamp to alert you when power is restored. Typically, your refrigerator will keep food cold for about 4 hours. Your freezer will keep its temperature for about 48 hours. Also, please check on your neighbors. The Monte Vista Arc, located at 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard at the Monte Vista Fire Station, has been activated as a resource that residents can go to for more information during daytime hours. Again, the address of the Monte Vista Arc is 22620 Stevens Creek Boulevard. For more information on the Public Safety Power Shutoff event, including the latest impact area maps, please visit PG&E's website at pge.com/PSPS. That's pge.com/PSPS. Please note that PG&E is experiencing high volumes of traffic to their website, so some pages may have trouble loading. And stay tuned to Radio Cupertino for the latest local information regarding this Public Safety Power Shutoff event.
So welcome to our monthly Board of Directors meeting for Silicon Valley Clean Energy. We will call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. We'll start with roll call, please.
Yes, Chair Abakoga.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller.
Here.
Director Montano. Director Elahi. Director Sayok.
Here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Sinks. Director Corrigan.
Here.
Director Gibbons.
Here.
Alternate Director Flagger.
Here.
Thank you, and I'll note Director Tovar, Martinez Beltran, and Ellenberger absent.
Great, thank you. We'll move to public comment on matters not listed on the agenda. Any members of the public wishing to speak on a non-agendized item? Are there any cards? No? All right. We'll move on to our consent calendar. Are there any items to be pulled or commented by board members? No? Any members of the public wishing to pull an item? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move consent item 1A through 1K, 1F. L.
1L.
That's an L? Okay, 1L.
Is there a second to the motion? All right, so motion by member Gibbons, second by member Smith. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We go to the regular calendar, and we'll start with the CEO's report. Mr. Balachandran.
Thank you, Chair Abikoga. So on the legislative and regulatory side, we covered most of the regulatory issues at our workshop, you know, the IRP issues and the allocation issues. On the legislative side, the ad hoc Leg Committee will be meeting on October 21. We'll be looking at your legislative platform. Oh, 22. I wasn't sure what this was, but thank you. So October 22, and then we'll be bringing you the legislative platform shortly thereafter. The last part of my CEO update is to introduce our newest employee, Michaela Pippin, as she's coming up to speak to you. She joined SVCEA as our new communications specialist. She studied public relations and public administration at CSU Fullerton, and we are very excited to have her be the newest member of our team.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Michaela Pippin. As Garish said, I am the new communications specialist. I am very excited. I recently graduated from Cal State Fullerton with a double major in public relations and public administration with the intention of working in sustainability. Being in Fullerton, it was all about lifestyle and Hollywood, so it was really refreshing to come back to the Bay Area and find that there are these amazing jobs available. So, thank you.
The last thing I'd say, we'll be bringing you, we're doing our contract negotiations, and from the next month onwards, Monica will be providing you an update. That's the end of our report, my report.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Any members of the public wishing to speak on this, on the CEO's report? No? If not, thank you. We'll move on to the third item, our workshop. Any follow-up from the workshop? Did you have some opening comments?
The workshop, thank you very much for your feedback. I think we've got some very clear direction. As was suggested at the workshop, maybe a motion to memorialize that direction would be helpful for staff.
Great. And Vice Chair, do you happen to have a motion?
I have one in mind. Let's see if we can figure, it probably sounded better before, but hopefully it sounds the same. So, I would like to move that we accept the staff recommendation on RPS. I would move further that we accept the staff recommendation on geothermal. We are good to move forward with the binary project. We would like to see that potentially in December. And then on geothermal in general, we'd like it to be part of the plan that you model, including offsets, so that we end up with a carbon-free geo situation. And then on the issue of which shopping carts we'd like you to model, we like all the carts that you have, but we would also like to include the free hydro in cart 1 and in cart 2, so maybe it's a cart 1 plus and a cart 2 plus. And then on the nuclear, we'd like that modeled as well with the option of selling the nuclear, so it would be out of our portfolio. And then as appropriate, we'd like you to put in, I called it BioX, but biogas and biomass as appropriate to model.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion from the Vice Chair and a second from Director Smith. Yes, let me open it up to the public. Any comments from the public on this item, a motion? No? If not, I'll bring it back. Any comments?
Just to clarify, the motion would be to study nuclear as either putting it on RPCL or selling it.
Right.
Thank you. Both of those.
Both of those.
Got it.
And I believe, just to memorialize the conversation here publicly, that we also wanted to see the net effects of removing the
yeah, I totally forgot about that. Go ahead, finish.
Let me see if I can. Removing the nuclear from the PG&E content label, what effect it'll have on our label and on the PG&E label.
Yeah, I think the label question was applicable to all the shopping carts.
Yes.
What's the approximation of what we think our power label is going to look like on each shopping cart, in addition to the prices?
Great. Any other questions, comments on the motion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to board member announcements and direction on future agenda items. Do we have any announcements or agenda requests? Yes, Mr.
Thanks. I wanted to commend John Supp and the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. They put in a really impressive presentation at the Rotary Club last Wednesday, and as a result, there seems to be interest from some people in Los Gatos even to take a look at it. So we'll see how that goes.
If I can tag on to his comments, I'd also like to commend John Supp for his presentation to the City of Los Altos Hills, which had our meeting on REACH codes since we met last, and I'm excited to say we are moving forward. Great. So there.
Director Montano.
So on that note, I wasn't aware that you guys do presentations at different clubs. So I belong to the Kiwanis Club. Would you be willing to do a presentation there?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Over here, yes. Director Gibbons.
And I was just going to thank staff for an excellent panel on the REACH codes last week. It was really phenomenal guest speakers, excellent discussions, very informative, and I just really appreciate the effort and energy that it took to put something that comprehensive together. And I also thought it spoke really well of our staff to have the kind of connections, to get the kind of people that came there, was really impressive. So thank you for a very well done job.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Vice Chair.
Oh, just part of the theme that there's a lot of new people here. I want to thank staff for, and this will sound weird, but I want you to think about what I'm saying, right? Okay. For all the presentations. They have shown up in my school and presented to the 5th graders on Earth Day. They show up at all of our city events and host tables to inform people. Staff has shown up for working with our staff on the REACH codes, and I want to thank them in advance because we're going to have our discussion in just a couple days. For those who've adopted it, I'm wondering how many have adopted something with respect to no natural gas in new construction?
Kind
of. And we'll be considering it in November.
So it's being considered by
October.
Excellent,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So one of the things somebody in our Sustainability Commission talked about is the idea that gas is such a part of cooking in many places where our residents are from. For me too, okay? And I don't know if it's appropriate for us to be scheduling some cooking demonstrations with induction cooking. I keep referring people to that talk that Panama Bartholomew did, and I say, go to this minute and take a look. He talks about cooking for 10 minutes and why, and really motivating the change. But I'm wondering if, it might not make sense to do some sessions to help people be more open to the idea that you don't need to cook with gas.
We need a demo kitchen. We need to
well,
have
exactly,
something
right?
set
And
up.
so I don't know.
Isn't that the future fit home that we're talking about?
Yeah. So we are going to be having a cooking demo this Saturday.
This is not a setup. I just want you
to. Pretty impressive. Could you do it a little faster?
Thank you for organizing that in the last 15 seconds.
We have phenomenal staff. It's the Bay Area Home Electrification Expo at the San Jose, I believe it's at the Tech Interactive. So it's at the Tech Museum in San Jose.
Cool.
And we are co-sponsoring that. And I believe there's one tomorrow also.
Oh, see, faster.
I don't know if it's possible if even an amateur taking a video of some really eloquent speaker talking about it. I mean, Panama really did it, but any of this stuff we put out, that we can share on social media, I think helps the conversation. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to mention is I was at a class taught by Professor Severin Borenstein of the Haas School of Business and Economics and James Bushnell from Davis. It was all day Thursday, all day Friday. And the title of the class was The Economics of Energy and the Environment. And I would commend this class to anybody who really wants a look at how we are viewed and how the energy markets are playing out in California. I found it extremely useful. And I also noted, we had a couple of SV staff members there as well. Javed was there, a staffer from, the chair and a staffer from Peninsula as well. But I learned a whole heck of a lot, and I think it's important for us to see how we are players and how we are viewed. And frankly, some of the opinions expressed by Professor Bushnell were somewhat challenging of CCAs. And so I think being in dialogue with these folks who are very influential at the state level is critical. The class was filled with young PUC staffers and many others, right, who hold positions of interest in the state of California. And so, our ability to be in dialogue with these thought leaders, Severin, who's on the California Independent System Operator Board of Governors, I think it's critical. So there's another class that's happening January 8th and 9th. And if you found your service on this board to be super interesting and you'd like to scratch down a level more, I'd really recommend this class.
Maybe we could get staff to send it to all the board members, all the alternates, and all of our staff members.
The
I may
things,
say
the things like 9 to 4, 9 to 5, something like that, so.
So this invite did go out to all the board members.
Yes.
2 accepted, so now we'll send this as soon as the official notice comes out to all the board members again. Following up with Director Sinks's comment about Professor Bushnell, we have initiated outreach to him, and we have a contact through SVCEA who studied with him, and so we're going to set up a meeting.
Great, so, thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Well, I was waiting for the Reach Code competition. Mountain View will be deciding on October 22nd.
Nice.
And we're going further than SVC's recommendation, actually, and staff is recommending mandating all electric except for single-family homes. And that one, I would like to push it further, but the catch is ovens or stoves and then fireplaces, and I think fireplaces is something, well, we talk about it at the Air District where we encourage replacing wood burning with natural gas, but even that emits carbon, so maybe it's time to let go of fireplaces. But these are emotional issues, so we'll see what kind of response we get. But I think are we going to be the first one? I was told we're going to be the first one. That's right. And then I just want to thank staff for the workshop earlier this afternoon. I think we really came a long way from last month, at least in my mind. I was able to really, I think, get a better sense of what we were discussing. So I appreciate you breaking it down into biteable pieces. And I think we had a really good conversation and look forward to moving forward with our initiatives. So thank you very much to all of you for your hard work on that. And anyone else? Yes.
Request, should you be successful in getting this through, if we can just start to compile all of these so that we can bring them with us when we go to our meetings to show what has already been done.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I'll definitely ask our staff to relay, but maybe
Yeah, I think
staff
we
here
can do
could
that.
coordinate all that.
The much talked about John Supp is on this
Yeah, where is he?
completely. And so maybe what we could do is
He's
we
doing
can
a
send it out
presentation
to the board as these things are adopted with a link to the website.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. All right. Well, if there is no other business, then we stand adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
15 minutes.
She wins.